All right, today we're jumping into something that I'm pretty sure every parent, caregiver, or teacher has experienced. It's called the knowing-doing gap. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever asked a kid to do something, anything, and they look right at you, they say okay, and then just nothing? It's that classic moment, right? So what is actually happening there? And yeah, that's what we're calling the frustrating okay. It's that moment when you're sure they get it, but the understanding just doesn't turn into action. It can be maddening. Okay, so let's walk through the play-by-play. First, you get the nod. You think, okay, check. They're with me. They're listening.
Then comes the verbal confirmation. An a yep, that classic okay. You're thinking, great, communication is crystal clear.
And sometimes they even repeat the whole thing back to you. You say, hey, can you put your shoes in the closet? And they say, put shoes in closet. And you're like, yes, we are totally on the same page here. This is happening.
But then you look over a few minutes later, and what do you see? The shoes are still sitting right there in the middle of the floor. That whole promise of action just evaporates.
And how does that make you feel? Well, for most of us, it's a mix of two things. It's super confusing because, all the signs were there, but it's also really, really frustrating. It can totally feel like you're just being ignored on purpose. Okay, so what does this all look like from a different angle? Let's talk about how we can start to see this whole situation differently and maybe get past those first gut reactions.
This is where it gets really interesting because it's all about perception versus reality. What looks to us like resistance, like they're just digging their heels in, well, a lot of the time, it's really just that their capacity, their ability is still playing catch-up. And what feels like they're not listening, that's often a kid who literally cannot act on it yet. So our first interpretation, it's probably missing the bigger picture.
And that brings us to the core idea here, the knowing-doing gap. We're going to break down what that space between knowing what to do and actually doing it really is.
So what is it? Simply put, it's the space between understanding something and being able to physically do it. And here's the absolute key. This is a normal part of development. We're not talking about a behavior problem here. We're talking about a brain that's still under construction. Think about it. Doing something is way more complicated than just knowing about it. It takes a whole toolkit of skills that are still developing. You need attention to stick with the task. You need self-control to manage all the other things you'd rather be doing. And you need the right timing to actually get it done. All of those things are, a work in progress. Which brings us to a really powerful way to look at this whole thing. Capacity catching up. This is all about shifting our perspective and finding a new kind of patience, one that's actually based on what's happening inside a developing brain. Honestly, if you remember one thing from all this, let it be this. Understanding is not the same as being able to do it. A child can 100% get what you're asking, but still not have all those executive function wires connected to actually pull it off just yet. There's a great quote from the material that just nails it. Sometimes children understand more than they can actually do. Their brain's understanding can be way ahead of their body's ability to act. And that space right in between, that's the knowing-doing gap. So, when you put this all together, what's the most important thing to keep in mind the next time you get one of those frustrating okays? It's this simple idea. Knowing is one step. Doing takes time. That gap between them, it's not defiance, it's development. And just remembering that can change everything. It turns that frustration into patience, and it can turn a moment of misunderstanding into a moment of connection. So I'll leave you with this to think about. How might your approach change, knowing that the doing part is just taking a little more time to arrive?